Welcome along to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden, and here we talk nothing but motorhomes with our expert Matt Sims. Matt, how are you doing today?
Very good, thanks, Keith. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks very much. I'm very happy being here with you today because we're going to talk about something we touched on a few podcasts ago, which I'm actually very interested in doing, and interested in knowing why more people don't do it. Wild camping. I've got this dream. I get in my motorhome, I drive, say to Devon or Cornwall, and instead of going onto caravan sites, I just pull over by the side of the road or somewhere which is picturesque with a nice view. I have a meal or barbecue and I settle down for the night with the family.
Sounds great.
It's not as easy as that, though, is it?
Can I come? Sounds lovely. It's not as easy. You can do what you've just described. The issue comes where you want to stay the night. And there's this... I guess it comes from a sense of perhaps entitlement. I don't know. Or certainly a misconception of what we're allowed to do. The sense of I can just rock up at a lay-by or a beauty spot, Devon, anywhere. It could be in the grounds of a castle in Scotland or the edge of a loch. The reality is you're not allowed. It's illegal. You can't do it.
But I don't understand that. Why is it not allowed? We live in a beautiful country. We've got the right to roam. I've got my motorhome. I'm responsible. I'm not going to do anything naughty. Why can't I just pull up? If it's not private land, if it's public land.
Well, even if it's public land, it's owned. So all land in the United Kingdom is owned by someone. And you are deemed to be trespassing if you rock up on that land to stay the night. Now, there are areas where it's permissible to do this, advertised in apps that you can download. We'll do a podcast on apps for your motorhome holiday. That would be good. And so we'll come on to that. But there are places you can do it, but otherwise you have to assume that land is owned, and without permission of that landowner, you are trespassing and therefore potentially causing a civil or committing a civil offence.
Okay, we've talked about, again, the negatives. Let's talk about the positives. Yeah. What can I do?
Okay, so the wild camping code is, the official definition of wild camping is you turn up with a tent in a backpack on foot, you pitch your tent, you get in the tent, go to sleep, so you arrive late and you leave early. Okay, this is key, with a tent on foot. And then you get up in the morning as the sun rises, you pack up your tent and you leave no trace. Okay, this is a really important phrase which has been embraced by hundreds of communities around the UK that have suffered, sadly, at the hands of folk in motorhomes, campervans and even caravans who've turned up and spent the day there, you with your barbecue and all your family and friends, and had all day there and all night having a party, having a wild time, and you've left mess behind. You would never do that, of course, Keith, would you? I would hope not.
Never. I never would. But where I've had my barbecue, there's a couple of scorch marks on the ground, but I've cleared away, all the tins and stuff. You really wouldn't be able to tell I was there at all, apart from those few little marks.
Scorch marks are a no-no. That's somebody's grass. You can't. You have to leave no trace. So if you're in a motorhome, you're not on foot in a tent, are you? So to stay in that spot, in a motorhome or a caravan, any type of leisure vehicle, you have to have the landowner's permission, okay? That's really crucial. And then, and only then, could you stop in that spot. What's been happening the last couple of years, of course, is motorhomes have been really prolific on the roads, particularly in Scotland and around the Lake District, Devon and Cornwall, near us as well. And they're everywhere. People have been hiring them, they've been buying them, and people have struggled to get onto a campsite because the campsites are full. And for a time, of course, they were only operating at half occupancy because of creating additional space between pitches. And so people almost had no choice but to go what was known as wild camping. And so the rules were abused. And the vast majority of people weren't there to cause harm, offence or cause damage. And people did conduct themselves very well. Nonetheless, they didn't have permission to do it. And so for the residents of these beautiful spots in our country where, they perhaps it's their daily dog walk, because it's sort of their back garden, if you like, to turn up and there's half a dozen motorhomes or camper vans there. You imagine if that was you and that was your back garden. They haven't got your permission to be there. And it is a civil offence. And you can be prosecuted. And just doing some quick research before this podcast, thanks, Jordan, you can be fined up to 2.5K. For spending a night. If the landowner wanted to, they could take you to court. Normally, you're just going to be asked to be moved on. But the key is you leave no trace if you do stop in a beauty spot and you've got permission to do so. So you could prepare. That's the key, is phone the council. So if you go into Herefordshire, phone them up. I've no idea what they would say. Maybe we should have rung them before we did this podcast. But if you ring the council, they, I'm sure, would be delighted to help you get it right. It's in their interest that you do. And they'll tell you where the spots are that you can stop. You'll notice increasingly, particularly it's true in this part of the country, in the southwest, lay-bys have got bars over the entrances that are, a restricted height at 2 metres. So a motorhome or camper van can't even get in the car park. And sometimes, annoyingly, I'm not going to say where, but it was true of a car park not far from where I live. The bar was placed across at night. So people went in during the day and then couldn't get out. Trapped.
Guaranteed fine.
Or they tried to get out and did untold damage to the roof. So you have to be very mindful. There are restrictions put in place. If you're on Facebook, or just Google it, but if you're on social media, particularly Facebook, is filled with people who've been doing this for years, and they have an opinion on where they know you can stay, or perhaps a location where they've always stayed and it's been taken away. That entitlement or that right has been taken away by the council. That's happening a lot, particularly on seafronts, where councils are removing the permission for motorhomes to stop overnight. If it says no overnight stopping, don't do it. The other tip I'd have, if you're stopping in a motorway services, where of course you can, that's what the car parks are there for your safety, to stop overnight, there is often a cost. Read the sign. If there's a £20 cost or whatever the cost is, make sure you pay it. If you don't, there is a fine. And they've cameras, and they'll capture your number plate and you will get a fine. So, do your research, be sensible and be aware of where you're stopping. But wild camping in that sense of, free roaming, you can't do it. It's illegal.
I must say, actually, you mentioned Herefordshire and the Wye Valley. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the country you could possibly go to. And having started doing this podcast with you, man, I've been looking out for motorhomes and caravanners, and they generally don't abuse the countryside. And I was in the Wye Valley not so long ago, and driving down between Hereford and Usk, and it takes you through some stunning countryside.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
Not a motorhome or a caravan in the lay-bys anywhere. We're not talking about the depths of winter. So actually, the community are very responsible, aren't they?
Indeed, yeah. As a motorhome community, yes. And it's as with any community or group, it's always a minority that spoil it for everyone. That's sadly true, isn't it? And generally that's the case. And unfortunately, that has been very true of this pastime of stopping in a wild sense. I would add that there are lots of pubs that open up their car parks to motorhomes and camper vans, often for free. And there's a book called Brit Stops, which advertise these places. These apps, Search for Sites, Park for Night, are two more. We'll explore that some more, as I say. But we do it on the way down to Cornwall. So we'll leave at 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon to head down to wherever we're off to in Cornwall, and we'll stop at a pub called the Jamaica Inn on the A30, and it's last time we went it was £10 to spend the night there.
Very famous pub, that one.
Very famous pub. If you're into pirates, you'd know it. And it's great food, great beer. We can have a few drinks because we're not driving, and then back to the motorhome. Of course, once the blinds are shut, you could be anywhere. It doesn't matter. But actually, it's not a bad place to stop. And then in the morning, we'll head off onto some of the lakes around that part of Dartmoor, and have breakfast at the side of a lake or reservoir. And then head on down to Cornwall Saturday morning, nice and early. So it breaks the journey, and it's a very convenient place to stop, and it's not expensive. And if you like, we are wild camping, leaving no trace that we were there, but with the landowner's permission.
And I'm old enough to remember the old Central Office of Information films, the Countryside Code, which was the same as Leave No Trace. You had the cartoon of the family going out and having a picnic in the countryside and leaving all their rubbish behind. And the Countryside Code used to warn people to clear up their rubbish. But this Leave No Trace is basically the same thing, but just for the 21st century.
It is, yeah, it is. And be respectful as well. Obey any local bylaws, which is where doing your research is really important. Don't block a view. If you're going to park on a cliff edge and people are walking by to admire the view and all they've got is a big slab of white plastic, that's not going to go down well. No. You're not going to make friends. You're going to make enemies.
Yeah, so you have to understand that when you're looking out the window of your motorhome, you can't actually see the motorhome you're sitting in, and it might not be people's idea of a lovely view as far as they're concerned.
Exactly. No, that's right. That's right. So be respectful in every way. Don't leave any rubbish. Emptying in a motorhome, of course, you're very self-sufficient. So you've got your own fresh water, you've got your heating, you've got your own toilet, your shower, and you kind of could just park up with permission and be completely self-sufficient. Where it goes wrong is when people start to decide to discard their waste products. So the grey water, which is the water you've had a shower in, or you've washed your hands, or you've brushed your teeth. So it contains soap, it contains body fat, it might contain saliva. It's not a very nice fluid. So emptying that on the side of a road or on a grass bank is not very respectful. Emptying down a rain drain, that's fine. That I'd say that would be acceptable.
So I can do that with the contents of my toilet as well, can I?
No, 100% not, Keith. That's chemical waste. So that's poo-wee in toilet paper dissolved into a blue liquid. It's toxic. That can only go down a sewer. Now, the way to a sewer is you can lift a drain cover to a sewer. They're normally very hard to open, or just put it down a toilet. Just, find a local toilet and very carefully empty it down a toilet. And there is a knack to doing this. If you aim it straight down at the water, you're going to get splashed back. You're going to get covered. So aim. It's good advice, this. And to aim it at the side of the bowl, and it will go round and down, and then no splashback, and no, you won't leave any mess in the toilet. And if you do, please, for goodness sake, clean up after yourself. That's really the whole Leave No Trace thing. Still applies when you're in the motorway services emptying your cassette. And you may get stopped if you're dragging a toilet cassette into the motorway services. It's not something that many motorway services want you doing. So because it does make a mess. So you empty it down a sewer point, or if you head to a campsite and just empty it on the campsite into their LSAM point. And I always say to anyone heading off on a motorhome holiday, if you're going to try and wild camp, obey the law, get permission, but plan every few nights to use a campsite. You can plug the motorhome into the electric, recharge everything, you can fill up your water, you can empty your water and empty your toilet. And they are fit for purpose and designed for that reason. So that's my advice, is every few nights go to a campsite, get everything sorted, and then on you go.
So the motto is round and down if it's blue or brown. Is that right?
Yeah, you can keep that one.
Okay, then. So you've put us right. I suppose to conclude, the message is research, research, research. Do your research before you leave.
Absolutely. As it is with everything to do with a motorhome, frankly, is do your research. When you're buying one, hiring one, and where to go. So, research it well. Heading off with no plan in the United Kingdom, I don't think is a good idea. On the continent, very different. I would encourage people to have no plan. One of the great things about motorhoming is you can just wake up, look where the sun is, on your weather app, another app, and just head there. Why not? Just follow the sun, or follow your heart and just see, let's see where this road takes us. And you can hop from campsite to campsite without planning, and I've done that many times on 4 wheels and 2 on a motorbike. But if you want to try and a European experience using airs is very, very different to being based in the UK. We're just not as geared up for it. So you have to plan using either a book or an app that will help you find locations that maybe aren't a campsite. And people don't want to go to campsites for lots of reasons. They're busy, or they just want that exclusive feel. There are campsites, of course, known as a CL, a certified location, or a CS, depending on the club you're in, a certified site, where there are only 5 pitches. And there's a huge amount of new of this type of campsite that have cropped up over the last year or two as farmers diversify. And the reason they only have 5 pitches is you don't have to have planning permission. So there are 5 simple pitches. They might have fresh water and a means of emptying your toilet. That might be all they have. But those 5 pitches are often very spaced out, and they're often in a beautiful location on the edge of the sea or on the edge of a lake. And they'll be very basic. But they are often very, very lovely. And there are lots and lots of new locations like this that have cropped up over the last couple of years as farmers respond and landowners respond to the demand, which has just been overwhelming.
Anything else we need to know before we wrap up?
Just remember, what you can't wild camp, you have to have permission. It is illegal.
That's the message. Don't wild camp. It's illegal. Do your research. Well, thanks for joining us on the Motorhome Matt podcast with Matt Sims and me, Keith Gooden. We'll see you back here soon.